Hello, my name's Graham McLaren. I'm currently Associate Director for the National Theatre of Scotland, and with me is Ross Mackay, who is one of the Bank of Scotland new directors and has been Assistant Director here at a production of A Christmas Carol and has been my assistant, haven't you, Ross?
Yes, I've been assisting with it.
And so we thought we'd have a chat and talk a bit about the process.
Yeah.
And so, from your perspective, what has been the most, let's start with the obvious, what's been the biggest learning thing for you for this?
I mean, I suppose it's the scale of it, really. In terms of when I've made theatre before, it's been myself and two performers, and we've also been the set designers, and we've also lit it. So to be able to come in and see how a team works and to be able to put on a production of this size and scale has been a massive learning curve, and just in terms of how things are placed and who comes in when.
Do you think as a result that's given you a kind of a clarity or a purpose about how you might approach the work you make next?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's helped me look. What it's definitely helped me do is look at things that I might not have seen before as creative, as really essential.
What do you mean?
In terms of talking about how the front of house is run, because of the setup of the show. The way the show is set up in terms of leading the audience in and ensuring that they have a sort of complete environment and the experience begins when they're alive.
So the idea is that everyone is collaborating on the show.
Yeah.
Which shouldn't matter, of course, no matter what the show is.
It's part of that experience.
Yeah.
That's the environment you're welcoming into.
Has there been any surprises for you in the process?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's surprised me how technical it's been. I mean, it's been a really technical process because I've worked with puppets before, and I think the scale of the puppets and what we're attempting to do with the puppets in terms of we're wanting to put it into a room means that there's definite challenges there, and you're not just working with the set rules of puppetry that you would usually follow. So it's made the process more technical than I thought it would be, but I think I've learned more because of it.
And what's been the most difficult thing for you, other than getting out of your bed in the morning?
Which is 6 o'clock in
6
the
o'clock?
morning.
No, he's dedicated.
Yeah.
He's dedicated.
Yeah. I think for me, it's because it's been your sort of project for 4 years. You've worked on it with Gavin, and for me, it's been able sort of coming into that and making myself useful, and not just being the figure at the back of the room, and trying to make myself as useful and as involved in the process as I can without stepping on lots of people's toes, really.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably been the big challenge of the project, and trying to sort of balance that.
It's true of leading any kind of team about anything, is like how you create the right environment so that people can feel they can contribute, and that you can contribute, and that no one gets offended. That's the challenge, I think, that remains. I think we'll always, and it never ceases to amaze me how regularly I have to relearn those lessons by, treading on people's toes. So just your fear is exactly the same.
Do you think was that something that you had early on in your career? Or?
Yeah, but it's something I still have, which is that people talk a great deal about a methodology, and I think it's true that as you progress, you develop tools and you develop a methodology, for want of a better term. But you have to realise that it changes every time you go into a new with a new set of circumstances. It's new ingredients to make the broth, and the thing that was a surefire winner in the previous show will just simply not fly here. and that's humbling.
Yeah.
I think.
And what about you, in talking about like the start of your career and that, how did you get into directing, and what was your...
I think most people, there's a great quote by Peter Brook about the best way to become a director is tell everyone you're a director. I love that idea.
That's how I started.
Yeah, I'm a director. Oh, well, maybe you direct something for me sometime. It's a bit like that. I ran a company and never really anticipated being the director.
Yeah.
And then the director dropped out of a show, and everyone rather assumed that I would do it, and I did it. And luckily, it was a huge success and toured the planet. And I had no choice.
So it's kind of in the deep end.
Yeah, I didn't realise how difficult it was actually when I did that first show.
Yeah.
I'd tinkered a little bit before, but not seriously, and so. But being honest, I think it turns to the term being a director still turns to ash in my mouth. I still think of myself as a theatre maker because, as you know, sometimes I like to design, or sometimes like with this show, it started with a series of sketches.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like a very directory thing to do. Sometimes, being a director has a certain kind of perception that I don't think is particularly helpful.
Well, it's quite reassuring to hear that, because I think that's like, I remember when I interviewed with yourself for the post, and I came out of it going, oh, why did I say I just mess around with puppets? But that is what I do.
No, I know. It's having the confidence to be able to say that, and know there are times when you don't say that.
Yeah.
Generally when the people opposite you have no confidence in you.
Yeah. Don't say it.
But it's true. I mean, there's no surefire way of doing it. I think for me, it's all about striving to create the context. And then if you put the right people in the room, the right collaborators, something should start to kind of to work, and then from there you evolve it.
Yeah. Keep evolving.
But there is no surefire way of being a director. There's no set system or method, and I'm always really nervous of those people who kind of promote an idea or a single methodology.
Yeah, this is how I work.
Do you know?
And do you think, like, because obviously you started kind of jumping in at the deep end, do you think having something like this when you were early in your career, you would have benefited from it? Or?
Yeah, I've always said that my great regret is that I was never anyone's assistant, or I never had a mentor, or any of those things. I mean, it's not that people weren't kind and encouraging, but I never actually had a scheme like the like the Bank of Scotland folks. I genuinely think it's a great thing, because I would have loved to have spent time in the rehearsal room with some of those people that I'd, in some of those shows in particular that I'd admired. I'd love to have been there.
What would be like your influences then? What would you have loved?
Well, I was really lucky, because when I was a student, tramway was really just at its heart. So, 1 week we could have Peter Brook, and the next week it'd be Robert Lepage or Lev Dodden or the Worcester Group. So just as you used to usher for the shows that I did, I ushered for those shows. So I won out of that deal. And so, but those great world-class artists, and I was really lucky being a student in those days. And so I learned a great deal, and I went out drinking with those guys, and so I kind of got to know them in a certain kind of way. But I would have loved to have been properly a fly in the wall in some of those processes. And people like Jerry Mulgrew, even now, I'd love to.
Yeah, just
that's the thing. That's the other thing, is when you, as a director, you never get the chance to be in anyone else's rehearsal room. So you've no idea what anyone else does.
What they're doing and how they do it.
So I'd love to be a fly in the wall in Jerry Mulgrew, Giles Havergal, Philip Prowse, Michael Boyd. Actually, mostly anyone really. I'd love to be a fly in the wall in Vicky Featherston's rehearsal room. But the trouble is, you're too big a fly eventually, or too noticeable. people notice that you're there staring at them.
Yeah.
So you this is a perfect opportunity for you.
Yeah, and I think it's funny saying how you looked at these people, because it was when I was at Perth Theatre, and I remember, I've got vivid memories of the swords coming down in Macbeth, and that really strong elements of that have then become part of the theatre I make. And I've got a real obsession with I could hang something, and I think it comes from that. So and then working with Gavin as well, who's
Gavin's a proper genius, though.
Yeah,
I think a proper genius.
Yeah, extraordinary puppet maker.
This is Gavin Glover, who's a puppet maker, and we called him Geppetto on this. Yeah. So he made the puppets come to life.
Yeah, and to be able to be in that room with that, and the cast as well.
But what's interesting about Gavin is there's no mystique about it. He just he works hard and is methodical, but he's not suggesting that there's some kind of innate knowledge that he has that you will never have. And that's what's great about him. He just makes it sound really obvious.
Yeah, I picked up this.
Yeah,
and this is
do that
and
hold it like that, and it'll look like it's alive.
Yeah.
And it's really encouraging working with someone at that kind of international level.
Yeah.
Who has no pretensions about it.
Yeah, definitely.